Hello, and welcome to American Friction, the US politics podcast that is actually very, very serious. I'm a serious man with 3 first names. I'm Jacob Dylan Jarvis.
And I, too, am a serious man with a normal amount of first names, Chris Jones.
And joining us, of course, it's Washington's sternest correspondent. It's Nikki McCann Ramirez. Nicola, hello.
Hello, I am a very serious woman with an inordinate amount of last names.
Absolutely. It's just, and they're serious last names.
Serious.
They are serious.
So, on this show, we discuss Trump's corruption as he accepts a private jet as a gift. Just a little treat, you know. Plus, we'll pick apart the details and we'll round up some other stories that you might have missed. But before that, Chris, it's that time of the week. Ask us a question that's either serious or seriously silly, if you like. I can't stay serious any longer. I'm not.
Like
Come
that.
on.
Well, it's silly, but we're going to get onto it a little bit later because it is quite serious at the same time. And it's all about this jet plane.
Yeah.
So my question is, Trump's been offered this big old expensive plane. And it's got a load of things on it. It's got, and I'll list them, a master bedroom, a guest suite, 2 full bathrooms, 5 lounges, a private office, and 5 kitchens for some reason. If you were given a big old plane just to do what you want with, or you could have whatever you want in it, but you could only have one thing, what would you request that one thing be in the plane?
A podcast studio, it goes without saying, so we can do that
Obviously.
on the move. But I think I've got to be more outlandish because if the plane's already very outlandish, and I could just make a wild request, so I would like a pet bear, but I'd like the pet bear to be happy being a pet bear. I wouldn't want it to be
pet bear.
in captivity of any kind.
Right amount of
really.
porridge.
It's had a bit of a
Voluntarily. It's there
yeah,
voluntarily.
exactly. It's had a bit of a bad time in the wild and just gone.
It was kind of asking for it.
I fancy being a pet. Yeah, they found it outside Battersea or something, going, "Let me in, make it a cat, dogs, and bear home."
Oh, okay.
And then,
Battersea, cats and dogs.
Exactly.
I pictured the shopping centre.
No, not just Battersea.
So why's a
outside-
bear gone shopping?
I probably would take it shopping. So yeah, pet bear.
So you want a pet bear on a plane?
Because if I can just request anything, I think a really cuddly pet bear would be one of my dreams.
Cuddly,
in life.
nice, happy pet
So,
bear.
yeah, pet bear.
Pet bear.
Yep.
Okay, nice. Nikki, what about you?
I will preface this by saying I am afraid of flying. I do not like airplanes. So if I were to make a custom jet that had everything I needed for me to have a good time on a flight, obviously, like, Michelin star kitchen, that's the biggest thing for me. Like, I need good food. Airplane food is terrible. I want good food. I want a little video game room.
Ooh.
I want a sensory deprivation room. So in the event that there is turbulence, I can just put myself in a highly solidified solution and not feel anything.
Yeah.
And then a glass bottomed swimming pool, so I could see the ground once I get over all my fears.
Yeah, surely. If you're
What?
scared-
Scared of flying, but you want the plane to be made of glass?
Yeah, just a little bit on the bottom.
Have you ever
I can
tried?
see.
Have you ever walked on one of those really high glass platforms? Like I went on the one at
No,
Tower
because I'm
Bridge.
not an idiot.
And
Fair.
they're so scary. I tried to take my dog on
I
it,
cannot.
and she just wouldn't go on it, and I didn't like it very much
That's
myself.
Cheese is a smart lady.
She is a smart lady.
But also, Nikki, I'm pretty sure I said only one thing. And you've listed a whole host of things. You've got to pick. What's the one thing there?
Well, it's one plane. It's one plane.
No, I'm aware it's one plane, but you only have to pick
Well, the
one
plane-
thing. Out of all of the things you've just listed, you can only have one of them. Which one is it?
A really nice gaming room. That's what
A
I do
nice
on airplanes,
gaming
is I
room.
game.
That's nice, isn't it?
What do you want, Chris?
I want, how do I describe this? Like a fish and chip bar.
Okay.
So, like, there's an
It's
area
already
where
got
you...
5 kitchens though. They can make you fish and chips.
I'm knocking one of them out and I'm making it
Okay.
into a chippy bar.
Okay.
So it's like a proper...
So like a buffet bar, but just of fish and chips.
No, it's a proper fryer.
Okay.
I want it to be like the experience of walking into a chipper.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to walk in and smell the grease
Oh.
on the plane, but it doesn't travel to the rest of the plane. I know what you're thinking. That's going to stink the whole
Exactly,
plane out. It's just its own little chippy room. I want a chippy room. That's what I want.
He wants a chippy room.
And I've not decided whether I want this or not. Just the whole inside is a map of Middle Earth.
Okay, well, listeners, do you want a chippy room, a pet bear, or a little video games room? Let us know. Let's go on with the podcast.
Let's do it. This is American Friction, and this time it's serious.
Okay, then, this week we hit a milestone, a very important milestone. We hit 1 million streams and downloads for this show. Everyone cheer.
Yay!
You at home too, cheer. I don't care where you are. We'll pause for a moment. But, Chris, we can always have more streams and downloads, can't we?
We can. We absolutely can. So to help us have more, can you please make sure that you go and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening? If you're on Spotify, there's a little bell at the top of our show page. Go and hit that. Go and hit it now. And if you're on Apple, there's a button at the top that says follow. Go and hit that, please.
And once you've done that, do leave a comment or rate and review us. We are all, as I've said before, very egotistical.
Speak for yourself.
We need validation. So come on, do that now or when you finish cheering, which I assume you are still doing. So, right, let's talk about stuff. That brings us to the start of the show. So, Nikki, why is Trump getting this new plane from Qatar then? How did this come about? And why is he even considering this to be a thing that seems remotely acceptable?
The deal is that Air Force One at this point is kind of an older plane.
Okay.
And
Aw.
there's been plans to replace it for a while now. Well, Air Force One is just the call sign. It's the name for a series of planes. It's the presidential plane. Whatever plane the president is in is Air Force One.
Oh.
But the current plane is a Boeing 747. They've been wanting to upgrade it for a while. Trump in his first term was really fixated on getting a new Air Force One up in line. In 2015, the government announced that they were going to replace the existing airplanes with 2 new Boeing 747-8s. So the 8th model of the Boeing 747. It's taken a while. The airplane, because it's not even a jet, it's like a full-blown fucking airplane, that the Qatari government is offering Trump is that exact same version of the plane. The thing here is, and I think the thing that everyone needs to understand is that this is not a brand new plane. This is a plane that the Qatari government has been trying to get rid of for a decade at this point. Trump actually toured it during his first presidency as an example of oh, look at this really nice plane. Why haven't we replaced our planes yet? But what's happening here, the way I would describe it is when you have I don't know if anyone has a really rich relative, but imagine you have a really rich relative who could buy you anything. And that rich relative is just on Christmas gives you a kind of crummy re-gifted gift that's going to cost you a ton more money to actually get to the point where it's serviceable. And that if they wanted to, they could buy you a new one. And it is sort of what's happening here. They're giving you this really nice thing. But it's going to make more problems for you because Trump is getting this plane. They've come up with some convoluted excuse through Pam Bondi that if they use it for a little bit and then donate it to Trump's presidential library, then Trump is allowed to keep it. And it should be noted here that Pam Bondi lobbied for the Qatari government while working in her private sector job as a lawyer. It's, there's a lot of layers to this shit cake. But the thing is, in order to be used as Air Force One as the presidential plane, one, accepting a plane that was built and crafted by a foreign government, no matter how much you love that foreign government and the gifts they give you, that's a security risk. It could be bugged. There could be stuff in the software. You just don't know. So the first thing the U.S. government would do if it gets this plane is to take it to a secure hangar and strip it apart and make sure that it's actually safe. After that, you have to put that plane back together and retrofit it with everything that the U.S. president would need for the plane to be the mobile Oval Office, the mobile White House. That includes nuclear shields, secure communication devices, all of the internal navigation, military equipment, everything that is needed to make Air Force One Air Force One. Because Air Force One isn't just a fancy jet. It's a military aircraft disguised as a passenger airplane, It's just really blatant corruption. You can't accept an aircraft from a foreign government and just be oh yeah, I'm going to donate it to my library. He he he. By the time it's usable, Trump's term will be over.
What's really ironic and also interesting is that the whole reason that Trump has gone or wants to go for this jet is because he said that Boeing were taking too long to update the latest load of jets, which Nikki said. Also, as Nikki said, the amount of time that it would take to check for listening devices, they reckon would take minimum 2 years.
Oh.
So it's going to be at least 2 years before they even check for all these kind of devices. And it's a fucking massive plane. It's called a Palace in the Sky.
I'll check it quicker.
They would literally need to take it apart like bit by bit, like object by object, button by button, to make sure that there wasn't something in there that was a security risk. Because after all, this is a plane that was made for a foreign government.
Chris, what else could you buy for $400 million just to contextualize that?
Yeah.
Because that is basically what they're giving Trump is $400 million.
Well, I'm glad you've asked. So,
yeah, please.
Of course, you could buy the most expensive Lord of the Rings film set prop, which is, of course, Anduril. That's right. Aragorn's sword. You could buy that 900 times. It sold for $437,000.
Okay,
Don't check my maths on this because it took me ages and it's probably wrong. You can also buy Darth Vader's original helmet and mask from The Empire Strikes Back 440 times. That sold for $898,000.
That is a lot.
It's a lot, Nikki. And you could buy Villa Aquamaris in the South Pacific, a private island which features, and I quote, 7 magnificent suites, a spa, indoor pool, theatre, bar, and, I've said bar already, but there's another bar, and a library, and what is, at 92,000 gallons, the largest private aquarium in the world. That's $39 million. You could buy that 10 times.
It's kind of wild that they call it Villa Aquamaris and it's a whole island.
Sounds good, though.
It looks good,
It
I'll be
does
honest.
good.
The
I
view.
sometimes browse websites where you can buy islands just out of
How much
interest.
does Jeff Bezos' yacht cost?
A lot, I'm going to say.
I don't know. You'd have to pay me to go on it and spend time with him, though. So, Nikki, with the plane and Trump taking it, what laws are there against this? And has there really been much pushback from courts, from wherever else?
I mean, courts, we're not there yet because it's all theoretical at this point. The biggest law preventing this is what's called the Emoluments Clause. And I'm going to read it to you because it pertains pretty directly to the government structure of your nation. So, no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office or profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind, whatever, from any prince, king, or foreign state. Essentially, you cannot accept fancy gifts, things of value, titles, other objects or indicators of prestige from a foreign government because it might be a bribe. What typically happens here is it's very common, you go on a trip to another country as president or a member of Congress or, a governor, and the State Department of that country or the head of state will give you like a gift, like, oh, thank you so much for coming, Typically, you hand that gift directly over to the State Department. It's like, oh, thank you so much. And there's like a guy behind the president who he like hands the gift off to. And that guy's from the State Department and he'll take it to where it needs to be. The State Department can auction those off for charity. They can keep them in a vault somewhere. Sometimes they loan these things out to museums because sometimes it's like really nice historical objects that are presented to a president. Like, oh, this is an antique fan from Japan and you can like display it in the Smithsonian, that kind of thing. If a president really, really, really wants to keep something, they have to get approval from Congress. So when Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize, there was a big hoopla because if you win the prize, you get like a $1.4 million check as part of it. It's like you get your fancy medal and then you get a cash prize. And there was a whole debate because some people claimed that the cash prize violated the Emoluments Clause. Obama ended up donating that money to charity just to like get around the issue.
It's going away from Obama on to MAGA, who they really don't like Obama. But are the MAGA faithful even pissed off by this suggestion of Trump taking this plane? It's not very drain the swampy, is it?
No, not at all. And I think it's really funny to watch all the people that spent the last 4 or 5 years screaming about Hunter Biden and like the Biden family corruption be like, oh, Mr. President, this is a really bad look. Like, yeah, I think Ben Shapiro called it like slightly skeezy, like it was a little suspicious. Like, no, man, it's straight up corruption. Laura Loomer, who we've talked about before on the podcast, the like Islamophobic influencer who believes a ton of 9/11 conspiracy theories and somehow has granted herself the power to fire people from the State Department. She was up in arms, not because of the corruption aspect of it, but because the people that are giving it to Trump are Middle Eastern, which is like, way to miss the fucking point, lady. She said that she loved Trump and that she would take a bullet for him. But, quote, I have to call a spade a spade. We cannot accept a $400 million gift from jihadists in suits. And it's like, okay, you're mad about the jet, but at the same time, a week and a half ago, the United Arab Emirates agreed to a $2 billion deal with the Trump crypto company that his sons founded. And to be clear, the Trump family isn't getting $2 billion off of that. They're getting a cut, like a commission of that money. They're going to be facilitating a $2 billion crypto transaction between the United Arab Emirates and Binance, the crypto trading platform, so that the Emirates can take a stake in Binance. But they're going to get a huge windfall of cash off of that. I don't take it as serious anger. Like, yes, it's bad. It's corruption. The president should not be accepting gifts of this amount from anyone, from like any amount, really. The clause doesn't matter if it's like a $20 gift or a $400 million airplane. A bribe is a bribe. But Republicans, they lack conviction. They lack actual principles other than fuck you against the minority groups they dislike. And that's not to say all Republicans. There are conservatives who are not in that vein. But the MAGA movement, the movement currently being headed by Trump, is about targeting immigrants. It's about milking this administration for all the money they can. It's about excluding LGBTQ people and trans people from society. It's about retaliation against perceived political enemies. And at every turn, we are now encountering moments where it's really clear the Trump administration is not prioritizing conservative beliefs and a cohesive conservative economic and governmental ideology. It's tax cuts for the rich while slashing social safety net and benefits for the poor, because they're taking giant cuts to Medicaid. They're downsizing SNAP, which is the like food stamps here in the United States. It's the Supplemental and Nutritional Assistance Program. They're violating due process rights for all sorts of protected classes. And oh my God, if we're just to touch briefly on immigration, we've talked a lot about how the Trump administration is using the specter of terrorism to justify abusing and violating the humanitarian and civil rights of migrant groups. Yesterday, the AP reported that the Trump administration struck a deal with the family of El Chapo Guzman, the Sinaloa drug cartel leader who was in prison. His son was also in prison, and they just essentially granted refugee status to almost 20 of his relatives to have them come into the United States. And it's like, you have mothers who are being told to pick whether they get deported with or without their children by ICE. And you're just granting the family of drug lords free entry into the United States. It's absurdist. It's completely nonsensical. And for Republicans to come out and be like, oh, it's a bad look for the president to accept this jet. Yeah, it's a bad look. It's also corruption of the highest degree. And if you had any moral fiber, any sort of backbone, you wouldn't have let it get to this point, because this isn't the first time he's taken a massive cut of money from a foreign government. He was doing it all throughout his first term, and you still voted him back into office. I'm done. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, that Laura Loomer's basically her one problem is, if you're going to accept a plane in this corrupt fashion, at least make sure it's from white people. It's
literally.
Absolutely.
That's what the Republican Party is right now.
Yeah. So with the Democrats and their pushback that they're going for, so are they actually getting some traction with pushing back on this? It looks like even Chuck Schumer, who, we're not necessarily big fans of on this podcast. He's grown a bit of a pair, hasn't he? And then Sen Murphy as well is becoming a bit more of a lightning rod for Democrats.
I think the plan was initially to make like a big hoopla about this like on the trip that he was on earlier this week. And then after the public backlash, they kind of fell back to no, we're just negotiating it right now. So it seems like it might be working, but like a lot of things, I wouldn't be surprised if in 2-3 weeks that jet, instead of being donated to the US government, gets donated to Eric and Donald Trump Jr., to one of their companies, and somehow ends up in the hands of the president anyway. They just don't do it through official US channels. The other thing here that I think we need to remember is that the Supreme Court ruled that anything the president does as an official act isn't a crime. So if Trump officially finds some way to accept this plane through his presidency, through the government, can you charge him with corruption? Probably not. There was also another Supreme Court decision that we talked about last year that basically made it way easier for companies to bribe politicians. So yeah, he can find a way to do it, and maybe there will be political consequences in the eye of the public, but he's theoretically not allowed to run again. This is, by law, his last term. He can just do whatever he wants and there won't be consequences.
On a sidebar then, just because we can be down occasionally on the Democrats, is Chris Murphy becoming the new fave Democrat? He seems like a bit of a flavor of the month at the moment.
I mean, I think Chris Murphy's having a moment. He's generally, I think he's, as someone who watches a lot of politics and watches a lot of hearings, he's been this way for a while. I think he's very good at like picking apart a witness, taking them to task. So on Wednesday, RFK Jr. appeared before the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, the HELP Committee. Murphy just absolutely reamed into him about the handling of the measles outbreak, about the public health grants that have been canceled. In a pair of hearings, one held last week, one held this week, where Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem testified in front of the House, Murphy just laid into her about the fact that when Congress appropriates money towards an agency, they're basically saying, like, this is the amount you can spend on this is the amount you can spend on that. They give you the line items, they give you all the budget. Kristi Noem is like on track to bankrupt her agency, HHS, or overspend on immigration by like July, which is really illegal. Essentially, Murphy just lectured at her for like 3 minutes about how she is myopic on the subject of deportations, that she is not fulfilling the other requirements of her agency, like disaster preparedness, that kind of thing, cybersecurity, that Homeland Security is moving funds that have been appropriated for other security priorities towards immigration, and that she's going to violate the law if she spends all that money in ways that Congress did not authorize. And Murphy, I'm quoting Murphy here. I say this with seriousness and respect, but your department is out of control. You are spending like you don't have a budget. You're on the verge of running out of money for the fiscal year. You are illegally refusing to spend funds that have been authorized by this Congress and appropriated by this committee. You are ignoring the immigration laws of this nation, implementing a brand new immigration system that you have invented instead of obeying. I'm reading from I'm a New Jersey publication here. Instead of obeying the statutes that you are commanded to follow as spelled out in your oath of office, you are routinely violating the rights of immigrants who may not be citizens, but whether you like it or not, they have constitutional and statutory rights when they reside in the United States. You act as if your disagreement with the law, or even the public's disagreement with the law, is relevant and gives you the ability to create your own law. It does not give you that ability. And then he went into how, like, she's essentially on track to spend more money than has been allocated to the Department of Homeland Security by Congress. He said that this is a rare occurrence, but it is wildly illegal. Your agency will be broke by July.
Sounds like me telling Chris off when he buys a really expensive lunch. When he comes in with too much Starbucks and Pret.
Starbucks?
Yeah, I saw you.
I do
Chris
that.
deserves a treat sometime.
I don't know.
Yeah,
He had a little treat today.
I had
saw
one
him.
Starbucks today. That's the first time I've had Starbucks in a long time, and it's only because it's round the corner.
And I just said, you are spending...
You didn't go to the Dick and Balls?
You are spending the dick and balls. You're spending money that hasn't been allocated to you, Chris.
It's the famous
actually.
cock, actually. But,
Yeah.
And no,
Well-
I haven't.
Right, Chris, on the...
Jov.
Let's do some polling now. So we'd obviously hope that Trump being corrupt as fuck would get some traction. But maybe it's not totally getting traction. What do we know about this?
Well,
how people are feeling about it?
Well, in terms of polling, there's no actual... I haven't found anything yet that's compelling.
Okay.
But there is this bit of research from impact focus groups by a group called End Citizens United, which we should mention is a Democratic aligned group. Their research...
I am pro ending Citizens United. I'll just put that out there. I don't know about this organization, but yes to ending Citizens United.
Very good. Well, their research found that with independents, they've become cynical about claims of corruption. And Tiffany Muller, the president of this group, said that people are basically just fed up with the system completely. And their research then goes on to say this. It says, the party that can convince those voters to stop being cynical for a moment will win in 2026. Both parties have had their shot at this. Trump was seen as less corrupt than Hillary Clinton in 2016. Joe Biden was seen as less corrupt than Trump in 2020. And in 2024, voters didn't know who to trust, but independents came to believe Republicans were more likely to take on government corruption. And voila, Trump 2.0. Now, we do know from previous polling, there's quite a lot of polling on corruption itself. And earlier in the year, YouGov did a big poll looking at corruption as an issue and what people thought. And that polling basically found that amongst members of Congress, 49% of the people polled believed that it's a serious problem and 31% somewhat a serious problem. And then with US presidents, 42% of the public polled think that corruption is a serious problem and 30% somewhat a serious problem. So this is something that Americans care deeply about, and it's on their minds when it comes to how they perceive their government being run. And it seems to be a topic that a political party could capitalize on at an upcoming election.
Nikki, the trip to Qatar, this Saudi trip that he's doing, it seems to be largely about business. Is it specifically about Trump family business though? When you dig into it, it's not about American businesses; it's about Trump businesses.
Ostensibly, it's a trip to go to various Middle Eastern countries, Gulf countries, and talk about political and economic partnerships, investments that these nations are making in the United States. I will note that during the first term, this kind of thing would happen all the time. Countries would be like, oh, we're making this like $1 billion investment in the United States as a way to kind of slide up to Trump and be like, hey, help us out. And then his term ended, and a lot of these theoretical windfalls never actually manifested into anything. But behind the scenes, yeah, this is a business trip. One of the big things that is happening in the background that I don't think has gotten enough reporting is that Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr., as well as Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, the husband of Ivanka, are working on this massive real estate development deal with like 3 different countries. Some of them are billion-dollar deals. I think it's a hotel in Dubai. The project is valued at about $1 billion or more. A golf course / resort complex in Qatar and a hotel in Serbia. So that's all happening as Trump is, oh, I'm getting like the Qatari government wants to give me a $400 million jet, and the Saudis are investing X amount of money in our AI project, and the Emirates are buying a stake in Binance. And his inaugural committee raked in like $240 million from interested parties. It's a work trip, and part of that is the work his family is doing very out in the open while Trump negotiates with the governments, the official state channels, they're on the back end making sure that all the sort of sweeteners are lined up. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to do this thing with Qatar. Well, we're also going to build a golf course here. Or, oh, we want to do this thing with Saudi Arabia, or with Dubai. Let's build a luxury condo. The list goes on, but I think the pattern you're going to see, which mirrors what we saw in the first administration, is that while Trump conducts the official state business, the channel that takes place through government pageantry, his sons and his family and his sons-in-law like Kushner are going to be in the background making sure that those little sweeteners, or big sweeteners in this case, that Trump legally isn't allowed to participate, are being forced through, like hotels, like golf courses. We talked a couple weeks ago about the fantasy plan for a Trump Gaza resort. I'm sure we'll see more news of that in the coming months. It's the list of just corrupt endeavors go on and on and on. And the thing people need to remember is that presidents, theoretically, in the theoretical functioning democracy of the United States, don't stay presidents. They do their 2 terms and then they leave and become private citizens. And part of the reason we have laws like the Emoluments Clause is to avoid the president crafting himself a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar nest egg on the back of taxpayers, on the back of his office, because it's bad for everyone, except the people involved in the financial deal.
Well, someone who it's not all been bad for then is a name we haven't heard for a very long time. Seems to have faded into the, not a very long time, but Elon Musk does seem to have faded into the background quite a lot, but it surprised me. He's been on this trip to the Middle East with Trump. So, Chris, more broadly, when it comes to the corruption that's going on, Musk is a massive beneficiary to that, isn't he?
It seems so. I was looking at this. The Economic Policy Institute reports that there were 32 federal investigations into Musk and his businesses prior to Inauguration Day. Since Inauguration Day, most of them have disappeared through a whole lot of cuts, which Musk, interestingly, has been involved with Doge. And one of those is, there's an executive order that was signed by Trump that effectively dismantled the Department of Labor's Office for Federal Contract Compliance Programs, catchy name. That body was auditing Tesla in 2024 and investigating into unfair work practices. That's completely gone away now. The executive order basically just cut that investigation just completely dead. So he's got away there, it seems, because there were accusations at Tesla of unfair work practices from employees themselves, but we'll never know. But then we've mentioned the UAE and also Saudi Arabia this trip. He's also benefited from this as well. I mean, he's an unelected official, but by all accounts, really, he's part of this administration, and he's taken this trip on and seems to have benefited from it, because he said in one of his speeches in Saudi Arabia, "I'd also like to thank the kingdom for approving Starlink for maritime and aviation use." So he seems to have been making business deals there as well, and that may not be like a clear-cut example of exactly corruption, but if I was an American and I was looking at this unelected bureaucrat who's been making cuts left, right, and center to the US government and then going on trips like this, basically with the administration and profiting from it, I'd be extremely unhappy and questioning how it's got to that point.
Very dodgy. Dodgy. Very good. Final question here. This is one from a listener. Gabby asks Nikki, what was Elon Musk, fuck that guy, doing with Trump in the UAE yesterday? I thought he was gone. So, how has he ended up being able to go there when he had been so sidelined?
I mean, I don't think he's been sidelined totally by the administration. I think Chris laid out the financial reasons why he was there. It was a Starlink deal. But he's still advising the president. I think what happened here, I think we may have touched on it a week or two ago, is that Elon Musk loves cosplaying government official. He loves cosplaying co-president. But the reality is that he is a businessman who is unelected, who I think became a really good example of the second reason why government officials aren't allowed to hold stakes in private corporations or like keep their private companies while they're in office. Because the first thing is that it's as we're talking about this entire episode, it's just a festering breeding ground for corruption. But the second thing is, and it's like less important, but from a company perspective, I think it's also pretty important. You could end up looking like an asshole and your company could suffer. And Elon Musk made himself the face of a lot of really unpopular policies, and his companies were actively suffering. We saw what I continue to think was a really strategic leak from Tesla to the Wall Street Journal, where they, like, kind of on the side, let the journal know we were considering replacing Musk. And I think the reason they did that was to freak him out enough to that he would pull back from the government and start paying attention to Tesla again. Because the thing is here, it's not just Tesla that he has on his plate. Tesla, SpaceX, the Boring Company, Neuralink, Starlink that we were just talking about. So he has like a half dozen companies that are already having to split their time to have him because he loves to be in charge. He loves to be in charge. He's the face of of all the companies. If you're doing that and then also going to the government and literally making your product a point of protest for people who are angry with you, I don't think Musk has been completely kicked out by the Trump administration. I think Tesla has told him, you need to tone this down, and he's just taken steps back from the public eye. He's still going to maintain all of the aspects of this relationship that helped him, as Chris said, get regulators off his back, help him like secure contracts with the government, help him secure contracts with other foreign governments, things that are profitable for him. He's just not going to try and be the face people imagine when they think about Trump's policies.
Could you just do that impression of Tesla whispering something to the Wall Street Journal again for us?
Psst, psst, psst.
Very nice.
That was good.
Now to round up some other things that you might have missed. Nikki, Trump's been very art of the deal again, hasn't he? And he's backtracked completely on tariffs on China, because that's always what he wanted to do.
He hasn't backtracked completely, but he has backtracked significantly. So if people recall, this escalating tariff war started. It got up to like 145% on imports from China. China retaliated with like 150% tariffs, I think was the number. It was bad. It was bad. And it was looking really dire. Depending on what angle you approach it from, there were several factors here that were indicating that the U.S. was about to go into crisis mode. The economy contracted in the first quarter. The Federal Reserve refused to slash interest rates, which is what a lot of people think Trump was trying to get them to do. Retailers were freaking out. There were warnings that inflation was going to go up and employment was going to go up. And all the while, Trump was saying that, you know, he was going to force an agreement with China, that China was begging them, and China, on the other hand, was saying, absolutely not. We are not engaged in negotiations. We won't even come to the table until these tariffs are significantly rolled back. And that's exactly what happened. Trump and China, the way they framed it was that they agreed to roll back the tariffs. But it really seems like the Trump administration blinked first. They agreed to lower them by like, I don't know what percentage point. It's down to the U.S. still has a 30% tariff on Chinese goods. China, I think, is keeping 10% on American goods. It's back to a couple dozen percentage points. But I think the thing here that one needs to understand is that this isn't an end to the tariffs. The tariffs are still there, and it's not a deal. It's a temporary pause while they negotiate a deal. So far, I don't think Trump has really inked out any like signed, sealed, delivered trade deal as a result of these tariffs. There's the one we have theoretically with Great Britain, which is also a deal to make a deal. It's not an actual deal. China's kind of like, yeah, it's a first step. We'll see where it goes. Because these tariffs aren't completely off the table, again, the United States is still implementing like a 30+% tariff on Chinese goods. This morning, Thursday morning, Walmart, which is the largest retailer in the United States, announced that they're going to have to raise prices. Because while the situation is fluid and it keeps going back and forth, we now had about a month-long period where international shipping companies and retailers were freaking out because these massive tariffs were jacking up their prices. So shipping has been down. I think backstocks and inventory are probably going to be down and will be down for a couple of weeks until shipping starts to re-regulate. But as long as you're slapping penalties on imports, things are going to be more expensive, even if it's just by 30-ish%.
On another big bit of news that's rolling on, we spoke a little bit around parts of this before, but there's going to be a Supreme Court battle around birthright citizenship, isn't there? What's the latest argument of what is going on there?
Yeah, so Thursday, the day we're recording this podcast, the Supreme Court is going to hear oral arguments on the Trump administration's challenge to birthright citizenship. Again, birthright citizenship is the law in the United States that says that if you were born on U.S. soil, you are a United States citizen. Doesn't matter what the immigration status is of your parents. Doesn't matter if you were here, just overnight. If you were born on United States soil in the jurisdiction of the United States, you were an American citizen. This was a law that was put into place after slaves were freed, like post-Civil War. And it basically was a way to ensure that recently freed slaves and their descendants were not denied citizenship by the white ruling class, which still controlled government and the economy and basically every aspect of this country. It basically ensured that people had civil rights. The first step toward having civil rights, having representation, was to make them a citizen. Trump is basically arguing that that law was not intended to protect migrants who have children in the United States. But the thing is, if you repealed birthright citizenship, that wouldn't discriminate between the children of undocumented migrants and the children of documented migrants, potentially. It would basically be a way for the government to have a ton of power to essentially say to an entire class of people who were born in the United States to immigrant parents that they are subject to deportation and removal. The fact that this even made it to the Supreme Court is insane to me because it is abundantly clear in the Constitution. There is no question of it. The 14th Amendment is abundantly clear that there is no undocumented immigrant exception to birthright citizenship. We did a whole explainer on it with Tim Dickinson from Rolling Stone, I think, a couple months ago. Go back and listen to that. The fact that this is before the Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court did not reject this on its face, is extremely concerning. It just speaks to how captured the court is by conservative ideology. And I'm very curious to see how arguments are going to go today. Once we're done with this recording, that's probably what I'm going to spend the rest of my day doing. But I do want to touch on how really sloppy and cruel and just conniving the Trump administration and immigration enforcement have gotten in terms of ways they are now pursuing migrants. We at Rolling Stone, my two colleagues, Aswen Sibsang and Ryan Bort, published a story this week about, I don't know if you two saw the viral video of the family, the woman and her baby and their daughter who was arrested by ICE in this really violent, aggressive, heart-wrenching arrest in Massachusetts. We found out that ICE had essentially used the baby in that video as bait to arrest that child's grandmother, to lure the grandmother to the site of the arrest so they could take her as well, because they told the mom, someone needs to come get your baby. Because the mom was undocumented, they detained her, they tried to arrest her. It became a whole thing. The community came out and tried to stop them. ICE beat up a 16-year-old in order to arrest her because she was trying to intervene on behalf of her family. But one of the women who was detained had a baby, and ICE agents told her, we can't take your baby. Someone needs to come get your baby. Why don't you call grandma? Blah, blah, blah. Grandma, who was also undocumented, shows up and I think they also took her. That's the kind of thing that they're doing. Again, they are arresting women, ripping away their children, sending fathers and people with no criminal record to gulags in El Salvador, and at the same time, granting refugee status to white South Africans. I'm so over this.
On to some listener questions now then. Let's end with a few of those. So David May asks, given the current political establishments are rather old, who are the upcoming politicians to look at on both sides of the aisle? I remember Beto O'Rourke making some waves years back, but not heard anything since. And I assume AOC is on the list. Nikki, go for a Republican who's on the up first. Who are some up-and-coming Republicans to keep an eye on?
I mean,
Josh
are we
Hawley?
talking about like the presidency? Yeah, Josh Hawley's definitely making a play for it. Also off of some things that are just completely nonsensical. Like, he wrote that op-ed in the New York Times about how Republicans shouldn't cut Medicaid because it was politically suicidal. And there were a bunch of takes like, is Josh Hawley the sensible Republican that will be the future of the Republican Party? And I'm like, no, you idiot. He wrote an article about an extremely obvious political opinion, which is that cutting Medicaid is bad. There was a study by American Progress that found that there wasn't a single county in the United States where cutting Medicaid had more than 15% support. Like,
Yeah,
like, idiotic. Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, I think he's going to be a big player in the coming years. I think he's going to try and make a bid for the presidency at some point. Who else? Who in the House? Marjorie Taylor Greene has burned a lot of bridges. I think it will be difficult for her.
What about the Dems then? Who is exciting there aside from just AOC?
I really like Greg Casar, the head of the Progressive Caucus in Congress. I think he's got an amazing strategy. He is doing great work in Texas. He's doing great work with the Progressive Caucus. I think he has big things in his future. Obviously, Pete Buttigieg is trying for it. But he's been around for a while. But I think he's still like trying to play into that same like, oh, I was a small town mayor and I understand what like middle America wants.
Doesn't care about train crashes though.
Nope.
Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, I think is also one to watch. I think he's been delightful. He's got just a great presence, a great sort of messaging that I think really does walk that line between being effectively progressive and appealing to those sort of intermediate moderate voters who don't like the label of progressiveness. So I think Wes Moore from Maryland is another one to watch.
What about Maxwell Frost?
I think he's delightful. I love Maxwell Frost. I have also interviewed him for Rolling Stone. He's a delightful guy. Incredibly intelligent. It has an incredibly long and bright career ahead of him. I just do think, I think one of the problems Democrats are going to run into is that you have this cohort of figures that have been branded as leftists by the general public, by the media, by the Republicans. And that's not to say that they should cave to that. But I think you do need to have some messaging calibration that is going to be able to appeal to moderates, to those voters that kind of defected from the Democratic Party in 2024. You need to balance it out. And I think what I am really eyeing is sort of those like stealth progressives who are very populist and very economic forward in their messaging, but are able to appeal to districts where a democratic leftist wouldn't necessarily be able to run in. You know, we're looking for the stealth progressives, the people who have the economic messaging right, but have kind of enough credibility with moderates to make that message digestible for people who wouldn't typically vote progressive.
I'm a bit of a stealth progressive.
Stealth progressive.
Yeah, that's why I always try and
No,
get...
you're not. You're a very open centrist.
No, that's why I try and always get Republicans on the pod, just so I can sort of stealthily do this. Nikki, I don't understand this question at all. It's again from David May. Given the need for escapism in this political climate, does Nikki have any AO3 links she'll share with us?
What is AO3? I've never heard of it.
What is
I
it?
feel like you have heard of
What is
it. I don't know what it is either.
I haven't got a clue. It's something to do with the... We could Google it. It's something
You
to do
could
with the
Google.
fan
You could
fiction.
Google it. Google it for me. Tell me what it's all about.
What is it?
It's some fan fiction thing.
Okay.
I don't know what archive of our own.
Yes. Yes, that sounds like an AO3.
I
Okay.
don't know what it is. It doesn't make any sense.
So it's like
See,
it's like
this is-
4chan for fan fiction.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
About us.
Does
You're fucking killing
that
me.
check out, Nikki? It's 4chan for fan fiction.
I'm not into fan fiction. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
That's weird.
okay.
I have only ever read published works through reputable publishers.
Okay. Well, someone else enlighten us. Right, this final question. This is linked to... So apparently Saudi officials had a McDonald's unit set up that then followed Trump around so that he was never too far away from, nice, authentic tasting McDonald's. David Bunce asks, what would the team have follow them around a foreign country to make them feel more at home?
Oh my god.
Chris, I'm assuming some sort of chippy van.
Fridge full of Melt and Mowbray pork pies.
Okay, nice. Nikki, what are you going for?
A little torta ahogada cart.
Okay. Anyone want to ask
Job.
me?
No one wants to ask you, but we have to, so go on.
I think I'd have a couple of... that every town and area has characters. There's always the characters. And so growing up in Lincoln, there was Big Tissue Guy. And instead of doing Big Issue, he'd walk around with a big box of tissues and go, Big Tissue!
Nice.
He got banned from the city centre. And then there was also a man who used to go around in a fur coat and fur hat, no matter what time of year it was. And now there's a guy near where I live now who's the Tai Chi guy. And he stands on bollards doing Tai Chi and then just sort of bothers people. But I think that would authentically remind me of home. Just a few of the characters that are around the place.
So you want just a bit of a circus troupe to follow you
Yeah,
around?
just some of the characters, some of the neighborhood characters. Everyone's got them. There's always, it's that guy.
Yeah.
I want some of them.
That's
I want
weird.
some of the guys. So,
Simon, don't forget Simon.
of course, Simon.
Simon, what would you have?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, I think a pub would be pretty nice, to be honest. Just a good
Just a
old-fashioned
mobile pub.
Yeah.
Just a little pub
Probably a
that
nice
follows
pint,
you around.
Yeah, I rate that.
Pub on wheels.
Just being followed by the famous cop.
Cut that out of the edit, the pub on wheels, because that's a business idea.
Pub on wheels.
Pub on wheels. Keep that in the back pocket. Well, those questions were from our Patreon chat community, which you can also join if you give us money. So it's £5
Fucking hell.
for £5 a month and above. You'll get access to our community chat and you can talk to us directly. There's a link in the show notes, or go to patreon.com/American Friction to sign up. And that brings us to the end of this episode of American Friction. Nikki, thanking you.
Thanking you, and thanking you guys so much for 1 million downloads, you listeners. I've never had 1 million of anything. This is wild. And thank you so much to Chris, Jarv, and Simon, who put up with my shit every week, especially Simon, who has to edit my babbling and make it sensible. You guys are fantastic. I'm so glad we do this. It's the best part of my week every week.
You too. You're fantastic as well. And it's not babbling, it's insights. Thanking you, Chris.
Thanking you, Jarv.
And
And
who do we need to thank now?
do I need to thank you again?
Yeah, kind of.
And thanks to you, Jarv.
Thank you. And thanks, Simon. Simon, thank you very much. And before we go, though, remember that we do need your help to keep going. So a big thank you for the 1 million downloads, as Nikki said, but also a massive thank you to any of our existing Patreon backers. If you want to be a new one, go to patreon.com/American Friction directly to sign up. You'll get bonus content, to talk with us, you'll get the episodes ad-free, and you'll just get that warm feeling of helping us do something, rally against the corrupt MAGA regime. And a quick reminder, if you enjoy what we're doing but you can't back us financially, we get that, but please do rate and review us wherever you're listening to the show. You've been listening to American Friction. Make sure you keep listening forever. See you.